And we're live. It is Thursday, January 30th, the year of our Lord 2025. It is 8:03 a.m. and I want to tell you a story about why I am 3 minutes late before we get to the cactus. Because every now and then I am 3 minutes late because of a sequence of problems. And this morning I had a sequence of problems. I woke up, I did some work. We're getting ready to launch a big piece about Kash Patel. We're going to get to that in a minute. But it's 5:30 and I did an interview with NPR at like 5:30 in the morning. Who does that and why?
What's
But
that?
anyway, I was perfectly on time in all things. And then I decided just before it was go live time that I would let the dog out. And I let the dog out, and he decided this would be a great time to run away. And so I found myself chasing Misha through my neighbor's yard barefoot in the ice because who puts on shoes to just let the dog out? And I get Misha back, and it is 7:58. So I still have 2 minutes to be on time. And I go to the studio and I click the little go to your Riverside Studio with us button. And to protect me from cybersecurity bad actors of all sorts all over the world, Riverside has logged me out. Now, I appreciate that they have my best interests at heart. I appreciate that Riverside is just acting in my own best interests. But right now, it was in my best interest to be logged in, not out. And I would ask the good folks at Riverside to keep in mind in future such situations that not telling me I've been logged out. That's the other thing. Riverside doesn't tell you you've been logged out. If you have one of the super hypo commando accounts like I do, where you can record and have guests like Berkley, Fletcher, and a cactus, and you can do all those things and they log you out. It doesn't say you've been logged out. It's just all of a sudden you're one of the plebes. And so I don't notice for the minute and a half that I am in, before I think I've gotten the dog back in the house. I'm sitting here, I'm getting my coffee, and then I go to hit the record button, which is the new version of the blue go live button, only it's the red record button, and there is none. Just like you have no red record button on your Riverside account because I was logged out. And I realized, oh my God, I'm logged out and Holly's going to think I'm not here. So I rush to log in, which actually takes a minute because, the whole two-step verification garbage, which is all for my personal protection. And I appreciate it very much. But by now I was a minute late and I log in and I go click record. And I realized that nobody's there. And the reason nobody's there, and I started talking, I even started giving a version of this monologue, and I realized 1 or 2 minutes in that there's nobody there because I'm in the wrong studio. I'm in the part of my account that I use for recording lawfare ads, not the part that I use for, dog shirt TV. And so I quickly jump out and jump in here, and all of that caused a 3-minute delay. And I want to now, having spent 4 minutes explaining the 3-minute delay, I just want to say, cactus.
You're watching Dog Shirt TV, an effing revolution in morning television.
And it is an effing revolution in morning television because it's the kind of show where you can be 3 minutes late and then spend 4 minutes explaining and then have a former CIA Africa analyst press a button on a plastic cactus that gives introduction to the show.
This was used in an operation, actually. I used this in a very top secret operation that I can't talk about.
Can the cactus talk about it?
Cactus may have killed some people. I don't know, so, but I'm not going to talk about it. And now they very kindly let me take the cactus with me, as well as a lot of
Yeah,
other things, which I finally unpacked. So, can we just do a brief tour of my
yeah,
setup here?
absolutely.
All right, because I don't think you have a big agenda today. Am I right?
Oh, I don't know. It's Kash Patel Day, but
Oh,
and we can talk about where your career and Kash Patel's career smash into each other.
oh, okay. Do they? I don't know. You
Oh,
might
they
have.
do.
Oh boy. Okay, so I just want to say, like, also I did this by myself. I did not have help. I went and retrieved two bookshelves from my husband's office, and I moved them in here by myself. I just want to say my back is a little bit worse where. And then I set my desk up here, and I finally unpacked my boxes from work. And so I just want to show you a couple of my things. First of all, this is really sweet. All my colleagues put their thumbprints on this Africa for one of my many going away presents. This is very fun. This is a figurine of Jacob Zuma by the cartoonist in South Africa, Zapiro. He's very funny. And you will notice that there's a shower head. He never draws Jacob Zuma without a shower head, and he's dancing on money, by the way. And why, Ben? Why is there always a shower head on Jacob Zuma's head when he's in a cartoon by Zapiro or anyone else in South Africa? Do you know?
I do not know.
Well, it is a reference to his rape trial. Yes, he was tried for rape. He was acquitted, but he almost certainly did do it. He allegedly raped the daughter of a good friend of his who he had known since she was a child, who also was HIV positive. And when asked about, he allegedly raped her without protection. And when asked about it in court, he said he wasn't worried about getting HIV because he took a shower afterwards. And so the South African media never portrays him without a shower head on his head.
Well, I would just like to say to everybody, in keeping with the spirit of safety that we have on Dog Shirt TV, uh, do not try that at home.
No, it doesn't work actually. Okay, next item. Whenever you're bored, just tell me to stop. The, these my colleagues made for me when I was working on Zimbabwe. This is the late Robert Mugabe and his very ambitious, very lovely wife, Grace, who is not allowed to go to South Africa because she beat someone up with an electric cord, causing them to have to go to the hospital. So she's wanted in South Africa on assault. She also,
South Africa, which was her husband's principal patron long after he became a
yeah,
vicious dictator.
yeah, I wouldn't say patron. I mean, he was tolerated by all the former liberation movements because of his credentials. But anyway, he was overthrown by the military when Grace tried to take over the government. When he was getting very elderly, 93, 94, made Joe Biden look like a spring chicken. And Grace, who was only in her 50s, she was his secretary when his first wife, was dying of cancer. And she's such a super nice lady, let me tell you. So anyway, and you can tell by looking at her, see? Anyway, Grace tried to take over or was positioning herself to be vice president, and the military decided they did not want to work for Grace, and so there was a military-assisted takeover, not a coup, a military-assisted takeover. So we have the Sacred Heart of Mugabe candle, and we have the Our Lady of Grace candle, and there are prayers on the back for each of them. This is the kind of dark humor that CIA analysts really adore. This is all retirees get these. This is a glass elephant from a factory from Swaziland that we buy elephants from in bulk. What else do I have? Oh, these are cool. These are Tinga Tinga style art in Tanzania. They do this style art. So I have 2 nameplates. If you want one, Ben, I can mark out my name and put your name because I don't really need to.
I don't think we should scratch out the name. I think that would be like bad things might happen to you.
Okay, well, anyway. Anyway, there's some other tchotchkes. Oh, this is kind of fun. So back when I started, I guess there was someone with a sense of humor who worked on the PDB staff, and all first
That's
time.
the President's Daily Brief
That's right.
For those who are not in the lingo.
And all first time PDB authors got basically what amounts to a Burger King toy. So I got a burger yo-yo.
Does it talk?
No, and I'm not a good yo-yoer, so anyway, that's a fun item. Anyway,
Yeah.
others I can save others for later. I'm still
All
unpacking
right.
a little
Well,
bit.
I think we should maybe have an item until you exhaust them, item of the day from
Well, I should have rationed it then. Oh, damn.
well, whatever. All right. It is Kash Patel Day. And I want to ask you, I'm sure the answer is that you can't talk about it if you do know anything. But there is this incident that Kash Patel is frequently talked about, where we were going to do a hostage rescue mission in, I believe, Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
And Kash Patel didn't bother to deconflict with the Nigerian military, or so former Secretary Esper writes in his book. And so we were, it was about to be time to go. And, we were going to actually invade Nigeria or fly into Nigeria and land troops to rescue this hostage without the Nigerian government knowing about it, which would be, rather bad. Do we know anything about this incident?
Me personally, no, I do not know. That would not have been my AOR. And also, what year was that?
Well, it would have been it was right as the Trump administration was going out, I think. So it would have been fall of.
I was actually working in another office briefly. I was doing a rotation, so I was not involved in that. So,
but is there scuttlebutt about it? Do you?
I think it was mainly a DoD matter. I mean, that type of thing, CIA probably would have been privy to and someone involved in. It just depends on, yeah, but all the clearances with the Nigerian military, given that it was a military
right
DoD, that would have all probably gone through DoD.
So I have been over the last few days principally editing, but also writing a small piece of this tome that the estimable Anna Bauer has been writing about. It is essentially a compendium of all the controversies surrounding Kash Patel. Everything from sort of like garden variety resume inflation to the threats of retribution against enemies to these bizarre episodes in which he has, in that case, maybe endangered U.S. troops. John Bolton has accused him of all kinds of things. He's had these confrontations with any number of both political and career Trump administration officials. And then there's these, and they range, like the piece is almost 8,000 words, because merely to describe all of the controversies is like there are astonishingly many of them and the facts of, I would say, 75% of them are disputed, which is sort of the kind of thing you would hope that a Senate confirmation hearing would, and he was, of course, very involved in what became the classified documents case, to the point that he was dragged in front of the grand jury where he pleaded the Fifth Amendment and had to be immunized before he would testify. I mean, it's just a remarkable volume of material that Anna just kind of lays out as a way of framing uh, the hearing and the question of his fitness to be the head of the FBI. We will be publishing that. We were like, Anna was working on it almost all night, the whole night, and we're still polishing the edges of it. But I gotta say, the process of going in my case, mostly editing it, it's almost entirely written by Anna, is like sobering. Like, this would be putting, it's not a John Ratcliffe situation.
Yeah.
Where you're concerned about whether he'll politicize intelligence. You're concerned, but I don't think anybody thinks that John Ratcliffe is deranged and insane,
On that.
reckless with U.S. lives, or a criminal.
So you're saying we should live our lives in such a way that Anna Bauer would not be able to write 8,000 words of concerning material about each of us?
Well, I would say, as somebody who has known Anna Bauer since she was a law student, and I think is probably more responsible than anybody for entrancing her into the world of investigative journalism and writing as opposed to practicing law, I think you want to live your life so that you never get on Anna Bauer's radar screen at all. Because once she decides she's interested in you.
Oh, is she interested in me? I hope not.
Swifty. Like she's one of my early editors used to describe me as a wild ferret. And my wife asked him, "Why do you call Ben the wild ferret?" Because you just set him loose and he goes and he's
all of a sudden doing laser shows and
But this is really more true of Anna Bauer than me. So live your life so that you are not interesting to Anna Bauer.
All right. Well, I might be too interesting, but I will tell you. I tell you what, we at work, we were all prepared for him to be announced as the CIA nominee. Because, of course, I'm sure she details the famous episode where after the 2020 election, Trump tried to replace Deputy Director Von Bishop, who I knew personally and he's passed away, a lovely person. And in addition to a veteran CIA officer, both on the analytics side and on the operations side. So they wanted to yank him. I think Trump was personally, I think Trump was afraid of Gina Haspel. Because he just
Gina Haspel's kind of scary, actually.
He had his number, clearly. She will never talk about it, as we've discussed. But and then put in Kash Patel as her deputy. I think he was too afraid to remove her. But even so, she was like, the hell you will.
So that issue is not I don't think we're treating that in the piece, because Patel didn't really do anything wrong. He was and by the way, there are these incidents where Patel didn't. So let me give him two points of credit. He was right about aspects of the Steele dossier. And, you know, and righter than, say, I was, the idea that this document, well, let me be more precise. I was never credulous of the Steele dossier. I was credulous of the FBI's FISA application as to Carter Page, which turned out to rely overmuch on the Steele materials. Patel picked that up. He picked it up early, and he was right about it. And there were significant flaws in it.
Okay, but was he right about it or was he was basically hitting every nail with a hammer and some of the nails turned out to be.
No, so I want to give him a little bit more credit than that, honestly.
Well,
I think he perceptively somehow figured out, if you read the Nunes memo, which is presumably drafted by Patel, it's more right than wrong. And the error that they make, and I think it's not an error of, it's a moral error, not a analytical or factual error. So they rightly identified that the memo, that the Steele materials was a lot of garbage. I think a lot of people figured that out. For example, you will not see anything credulous on Lawfare about it, because we're kind of like, all right, let's see how this pans out. But we were not among the people who were, for example, on television talking about the Steele materials. The FBI used a bunch of these allegations in a FISA application. And that FISA application contained a bunch of errors. And then they renewed it, and that contained errors. And the third renewal contained errors. And Patel and Nunes were not wrong that absolutely should not happen. But here's where they went astray. And I think they went astray intentionally. They treat the Steele material and the Carter Page FISA as the sort of origin story of the entire Russia investigation.
Right. Yeah.
And that is
not even mentioned in the Mueller report.
Correct. It's a set of leads that was followed that didn't pan out.
Right.
Partly because a lot of it wasn't true.
Sure.
And none of what became the Russia investigation is based on it. And so what they've done is they've identified a real problem in one corner of the investigation, and they've tried to make it the basis for the entire investigation, which is just nonsense. And I think it's like they found an element of truth and then they lied and lied and lied about it.
Sure. I mean, that's kind of the MO, right? I mean, it's the same thing with the Hunter Biden laptop, Unfortunately, there's been some misses. It's just like the asymmetry that I think, like JBL, I know talks about this all the time on the Bulwark, of where the Republicans can be caught in 500 lies per day and violations of the Constitution and just creating a dumpster fire of badness, and they can get away with that. But then on the responsible side, they make one.
Don't call it. I like the way you formulated it. Don't call it the Democratic side, because
no, it's the responsible side.
Institutional FBI, right? This is the institutional process.
It's the responsible side, the law-abiding side. They make one error, which of course in any investigations, it's hard to be perfect, especially when you're dealing with very explosive allegations with major national security, implications, and you're dealing with people that you have plenty of other evidence indicating that this could be true, like Carter Page. What happened to him, by the way? But okay, maybe he didn't he didn't do the things alleged in the dossier or whatever, but he was on RT all the time. He was spouting Russian propaganda all the time.
Yeah, so there is no doubt in my mind that Carter Page was a legitimate counterintelligence subject.
Yes. Yeah.
The there's a difference between being a legitimate counterintelligence subject and there being probable cause that you're an agent of a foreign power within the meaning of FISA. And I think the applications against him were deficient. And I think the proper number of deficient applications from the FBI to the FISC should be zero. Um, and so I do think there's a serious set of problems that were there that were unearthed, and I will give Kash Patel credit actually for having done that, for having begun a process in which people actually had to take a look at that. And then the defense, the inspector general of the Justice Department looked at it very hard and, validated a fair bit of what Kash Patel had to say. I will concede all of that. And by the way, those of us who were suspicious of the Nunes memo, in that respect, we were wrong. And I have no problem saying on this narrow point, he saw something that I did not see. He pursued it tenaciously. Some might say less than entirely ethically, but fine. I'm not even going to dwell on that. He got to something useful and important and valuable, and has been lying about its significance ever since.
Sure.
And so there's like, even when he's right, he still manages to be wrong. And that's kind of the weird thing about him. So there's another example of this that Anna dredges up, where back when he was working for the Justice Department, he had this weird situation where he was in Tajikistan for the Justice Department, and all of a sudden there was a hearing called the next day in a court in Texas. And so he has to get on a plane, fly to Texas from Tajikistan. He gets into the airport an hour before the hearing, and he doesn't have a suit. So he goes to court dressed the way you're dressed, not
You need a
inappropriately.
suit in Tajikistan?
Right. Doesn't, like, if this sounds like it all wasn't his fault, it's because it all wasn't his fault, right? He behaved totally reasonably. He goes to court and the judge berates him for not dressing like a lawyer. And there are some news stories about it at the time, about, all of which make it sound like the judge has lost his mind, right? That, like, here's this poor lawyer who flew in from Tajikistan for the hearing, and the judge is worried because he doesn't have a tie or whatever. Patel is enraged that the stories make it sound like this was his fault, which they don't. And he is enraged that the Justice Department doesn't publicly have his back about this, which is kooky because the Justice Department absolutely never makes statements criticizing federal judges over their, like, that's just not what it does. And it literally, in his account, is why he leaves the Justice Department. Um, and so, you have
Probably the full story.
I think it may be the full story, actually. Yeah, so I walked away from it like these two incidents where Kash Patel is either right or in the case of this innocent, right? He's like, he was trying to do his job, and the judge, as by the way, as federal judges do, sometimes they're deranged, and the judge went medieval on him. And in both cases, he manages to make it a kind of drama in which he manages to be wrong even while being right. And I think that's like really weird. I don't know that people who could, you know, find the Nunes memo, have the insight to notice that there's something wrong with this FISA application and then still be the asshole at the end of the conversation, right? To be berated by a federal judge in a completely unwarranted fashion over your attire. And by the way, if I ever go to that judge's court, I'm totally wearing a dog shirt. Um, and and I will do it, by the way, in sympathy and in solidarity with Kash Patel. Um, but to have a federal judge berate you in a totally unjustified fashion and still be the asshole at the end of at the end of the story, that takes work.
Well, he does seem very talented, and he also has quite a fashion sense. He has a whole line of leather outfits, I think, doesn't he?
Look, I am a
Maybe you
convert
need to
in
get
the
some Cash outfit.
I am totally a convert in the whole merch thing. I think, you know, like, you know, I, the
I,
FBI director should be monetizing the position by selling director merch.
why are you not selling dog shirts? Is the question. You have a show, a hit television show called Dog Shirt
Yet
TV.
25 whole people are watching it live right now,
Yeah.
including, by the way, you and me. So that,
Okay, well, I mean, many more people, of course, watch it later, which is also fine. People like to sleep in. And I think you need to market your own dog shirts. Just
well,
saying.
this is a very interesting question. Number one, I cannot draw dogs. So,
I don't think you have, I think, anyway,
where would I get the dog images?
you can have my dog. You can just, I can give you a photo and you can like blow it up and stick it on a shirt and, or your dog, like just get a dog, get a spokes dog.
A spokes dog.
Yeah, or a barks dog. I don't know. Is it speaking
I
if
think,
it's
I think if we're going to have
get
dog
like
shirt
a
merch,
mascot or
if we're going
whatever?
to have dog shirt daily merch, it has to be really cool dog images.
Are you saying my dog is not cool
No, I'm
enough?
saying like a photo of a dog, like
I'll
something
have
like
you
this.
know. I will have you
I think
know
you'd
that
want to um, get somebody who can really draw cool dogs to do.
we can do that. But I will have you know that Lilo Fletcher has starred in a video also with you and me, but
I am aware of that, and he does vocals on my
yes.
audio.
And his video on, I'm told, because I'm not on Twitter anymore, is up to like 1.6 million views. So,
Is that right?
yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah. But
This is
on
all because
it's
of Elon
still
and Charlie Kirk.
it's still only like 1.5K because I guess Twitter, when you embed it, you don't have to go to the original site. It like plays it on Twitter, I guess. So it doesn't the Twitter views don't show up on the YouTube views. So
Right. No, but I love I think the whole like antagonize Charlie Kirk and thereby get him to
oh,
publicize me is like a great business model for you, Holly.
no,
Here you've been hounding Bulwark people, and you occasionally get a like from JVL or Sarah Longwell,
it's
but
pathetic. It's pathetic.
but they don't actually market you. But you get one nasty remark from Charlie Kirk, and all of a sudden you're a fucking celebrity.
Well, it doesn't really
Apologies,
translate
Jonathan
because
Moore.
they got Molly. Molly is a fucking celebrity, but it doesn't. Again, it hasn't translated to broader. I haven't really cashed in, not to pun intended. Speaking of Charlie Kirk, though, Ben, and not to, we've gotten off the subject. We can return to cash, but one little item for you. My next video. So I did the one video mainly because I wanted to sing Tortured Poets Department, and I had the idea of the addled tech bros Farrago to rhyme with Mar-a-Lago. So of course I had to do a whole video, which took hours of my life that I'll never get back. And I don't know if you watched it. It's fine. And
I have not yet, but I will.
well, it's fine. The vocals are pretty good for me, if I do say
Hey,
so.
you have a very nice voice.
Well, Charlie Kirk and Elon disagree, but that's okay. But my
Hey, man,
next
I know
video,
more about music than the two of them combined.
yeah. So that video did troll Elon, of course, and I don't know if anybody did put it on X and tag Elon. But my next video, I think I will get Charlie Kirk's attention. It is a direct troll of Charlie Kirk parroting a song, an evangelical, it's actually a Christmas song, but it's like literally the dumbest, stupidest, most annoying song ever written by a Christian contemporary music artist. And I am going to do a parody, and it is directly addressing Charlie
I
Kirk.
trolling Charlie Kirk may be one of your callings in life, Holly.
I think
By
it's
the way, I think you should adopt the persona of Molly Berkley Fletcher,
maybe
and
I should change my YouTube channel to Molly.
or even like, just set up a separate, like
X
even
account.
a Twitter account, Molly Berkley Fletcher, um, and just be everything he imagines you are on it. I think I think it's special.
Okay, well, I'll think about that. I'm still a little wary of being doxxed and sued and things, which I
Yeah,
know.
as long as they spell it Molly, it should be fine.
Okay, anyway, well, that's fun. So Cash, well, I look forward to the article. Anna is always fantastic, of course, so I'm sure it's fantastic. Yeah, that'll be great.
All right, it is. What else should we talk about? Audience, do you guys have any?
I have a menu.
Oh, a menu.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
do it.
So first of all, unfortunately, did you hear about this plane crash last night?
I heard about it this morning
Yeah, yeah.
as a result of a text that I didn't understand from the estimable Ev Gaman. Um,
Very bad.
it seems really bad.
Involved at first it sounded like it was a private plane with maybe just a couple people on it. It was an American
It's
Airlines.
an American Airlines contractor plane
Yeah,
crashing into midair a Black Hawk, which
yeah,
is
nuts.
crazy. Midair collisions.
And crash into the Potomac. Thank goodness it went into the Potomac, because on the ground, obviously, that would have been even worse for
Yeah,
the
I mean,
ground.
the flight paths are over. You're
Yeah,
not, I think you're not old enough to remember the Air Florida crash.
wasn't here, but I've seen the footage, and that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, so, everybody who is, I was 10 when that happened, or maybe 11. So I guess we're around the same age, but you were in Africa. Um, that was like a searing event in the memory of everybody
Yeah.
of my age cohort.
Didn't it hit the 14th Street Bridge?
It
Yeah.
crashed into the 14th Street Bridge and swept a bunch of cars over. And then this guy who
Yes.
his name was Lenny Skutnik. And to this day, if you ask Washingtonians of a certain age, like, who's your vision of a hero? Like a wildly disproportionate number of them will name Lenny Skutnik, or often they don't know his name. But that guy who jumped into the Potomac to save people,
Did he die?
he did not. He
Oh, okay.
survived and lived a very ordinary life. He died a few years ago, I think,
Hmm.
but he dove into the freezing Potomac and pulled at least a few people out, and he was always completely inarticulate about it. Why did you do it? I don't know. I didn't even think about it. I just it's a super moving story. But the Air Florida crash, um, this really reminds you of it, like
Yeah, yeah.
freezing water, ice in the
There was
water.
I don't think there was any hope for survivors, because it was a midair crash. And actually, the Kennedy Center camera caught it on camera. They've been showing you can see, I mean, it just is an explosion, and then you see things fall into the river, but it's really tragic. But as you may have seen, already people are linking it to Trump's firing of a lot of the FAA heads and just multiple aviation authorities in the last 8 days,
Oh,
which
I will just say I yield to nobody in my desire to blame Trump for bad things that happen, but don't do that.
well, okay,
I'm
here's the
not
so
saying directed at you. I'm saying to everybody. Um, you have an aviation disaster. You have no idea what caused it. Don't
well,
make
obviously
up.
there was an air traffic control mishap, obviously.
Yeah, no, no, could have been a pilot error, could have been air traffic control, could have been that the Black Hawk was in a place it shouldn't have been, right? There's so many possible explanations of this for this. Don't reach to blame your political enemies. Actually, do
So I
have
already
the
did that.
discipline to follow the facts. And probably they will lead to uh, somebody screwed up, and it may or may not have anything to do with regulatory shuffles.
Okay, so now I'm gonna have to delete like 4 posts. So thank you for being a good reality check because I went straight there, obviously, because I hate Donald Trump. But I will say this: I do think people generally overestimate like changes at the top or even broad policy changes down to the working level. So I think that's definitely true, and I did say that. But I will say, based on what I'm hearing from friends, people I know in multiple agencies, the level of chaos, anxiety, and distraction across the federal government cannot be overestimated. And I don't think people are doing their best work right now. I will say that.
So I am totally down with that. I have many, many, many examples that I could give of that, including a photograph that was sent to me this morning, which I am not at liberty to share, but at a very high level of altitude, I will describe, which depicts uh, words that are American values being painted over in a federal agency because they might reflect DEI. They're on the walls of a building. I'm trying to
Oh,
make.
your mic is doing something weird.
Sorry?
You're good now. For a
Uh,
while, your mic went weird.
Oh, sorry. I am trying to get permission to share the photo and to disclose where it comes from because the combination is very powerful. So I have no doubt that your point is accurate. If you do the kind of upheaval in the civil service and the career military, um, and the foreign service and the clandestine services that are going on right now, you're going to have you're risking all kinds of short-term terrible options in exactly the same way as you might say um, in a completely different subject, if you allow global temperatures to warm beyond a certain level, you're going to get more bad storms, more weather events that are atypical, right? And that said, when a tornado strikes, you don't jump to the conclusion that it has specific result from climate change, and you're careful about that connective tissue. And I would say a plane crash, we want to be careful about the connective tissue. And by the way, to the irresponsible right, who's tweeting about how this is DEI pilots and DEI air traffic control, shame on you. And so I just say, I want to occupy a fact-based universe. I am perfectly willing to believe that this is related to regulatory changes, but I don't want to jump to that conclusion.
Well, I'm glad we had this conversation because you're a better person than me, and so
Very much not.
so no, but I was taken in by all of the hysteria. So I'm glad
The
we had.
hysteria might be right, just as the tornado might be a direct result
It's
of climate
wrong,
change.
it's a wrong conclusion to jump to, and so I'm glad we had this conversation. So,
All right, what's next on your agenda?
okay,
I like
so
this, having an agenda thing, showing up. That's very organized.
we only have 13 minutes, so I'll give you two choices. I'm just really confused about this OMB, the memo rescission thing. That seems very confusing to me. Maybe you have thoughts. And then, or we could talk about the fall of Goma in Eastern Congo.
Oh, so let's deal with the first very quickly, and then let's talk about the second, which is a matter that no one's going to learn about, including me, except on Dog Shirt TV.
Well, no, you can read it. There's like, there's New York Times, BBC.
Oh, I know, but who reads the New York Times? Um, no, I read the New York Times, and yet I feel like my education on this subject needs supplementation. On the rescinding of the memo, there was a memo, there was an order. It was rescinded. The White House spokesman has said that doesn't mean the freeze isn't in place, which is a false statement. So, as we learned during the first Trump administration, a presidential tweet, a statement from the White House podium is not self-executing, right? When Trump tweets something, that does not, when he tweets that Rex Tillerson is fired, that actually doesn't effectively fire Rex Tillerson. You actually need to go through a presidential chain of command to make things happen. Now, sometimes, as with Chris Wray, it will become self-executing because people preemptively kind of obey and announce that they're resigning. But actually, Chris Wray resigned, he wasn't fired. And
Sure.
like saying I'm firing somebody is not the same as doing it.
Right.
Saying if you rescind a memo and then you say the policy is still in place, that's actually just false. And so I think what's happening right now is that lots of entities get to ignore what the White House says and look at what the policy in place actually is. And as best as I can tell, that's, except in the foreign aid department where there is a separate, freeze, I think it's inoperative. But that's my best guess.
So the freeze is lifted. The freeze is not happening.
I think it is not currently in place.
But also on the foreign aid, though, Rubio had, so that's in place, except
That's in place because of a separate thing implemented by
they
Rubio.
lifted some humanitarian.
Correct. They waived certain humanitarian.
Okay. Well, anyway, it's very confusing. I can't
Say
imagine
a little bit about the freeze stuff.
Go for it.
And I would say, Ben, of course, it's important to have the background that this isn't clear, and some of that lack of clarity is by design, or at least I think we necessarily have to presume that. And so what certainly appears to have happened is the government withdrew the memo because they've been sued about it, while at the same time saying that the memo was merely implementing the executive order, and the executive order has not been withdrawn. And weighing those is challenging, but I don't think you can simply say that the memo has been withdrawn and so the freeze, you can't really reach either conclusion. And yes, go on.
No, I think you can. So first of all, to the extent there is a memo, there's an executive order, that executive order has to be implemented through something. Now, it can be implemented through a lot of agency level policies, but this was an OMB level effort to implement it across the government. That has been withdrawn.
So at yesterday's hearing, which I watched on YouTube, and apparently anyone can because the District of Rhode Island is great about transparency, and they've decided to characterize it as narrowcasting rather than broadcasting, apparently hoping that that lets them do this. The judge concluded that the government's withdrawal was, well, the state of Rhode Island offered it as voluntary cessation, which is to say when you stop doing something because you've been sued about it, but you don't actually mean to stop doing it. And the judge bought that argument that there was a distinction without a difference uh, by withdrawing the memo but keeping the EO, and and basically indicated he would grant their TRO, but only after they rewrote their proposed order so it was a little more clear as to scope. And I think that means the judge concluded that the memo is effectively still in effect. Otherwise,
Interesting.
I didn't hear you, Ben. Your mic was,
I said interesting.
yeah, effectively still in effect because otherwise he wouldn't be granting the TRO. Now, you can say a lot here, and it was a fast-moving area, and maybe the judge is not fully informed because no one is, and he has a particular set of facts in front of him that are different from what all the rest of us have. But that I think maybe gives you a little sense of why I'm hemming and hawing.
No, that's a very useful corrective, actually, and thank you for it. And keep watching those hearings, man, because there just aren't enough of us who care about these things. And you know,
I just don't have the mental health for it, is all. Like my head will explode too many times, and I only have so much brain left. So,
all right, Eastern Congo, go. We have
okay,
6 minutes.
so we've got 6 minutes. So, bottom line is M23 is a rebel group that Rwanda they deny it, of course, has been backing for years and years to decades really, ostensibly to go after the Hutus that
It's a Tutsi gang, right? Militia.
I mean, it's probably a mix of things, but yeah, it's on Rwanda's behalf and ostensibly to go after the Hutus who did the genocide and have been hiding in Eastern Congo ever since. But really, it's also because Rwanda has been allegedly probably stealing a lot of it's a mineral rich area, and they've been taking a lot of stuff out of there for a long time. So there's the latest round of conflict has been in the past couple of years. It's heated up again with Rwanda putting in more resources. And anyway, so the rebels took Goma in Eastern Congo, which is a huge city. It's like maybe 2 million people in Eastern Congo. It's the major city in there. So that's a pretty big deal. I don't really know what happens next, but it certainly does. The government of DRC, if you don't know your geography, is a massive country geographically. Kinshasa is all the way over on the west, near the coast. And
DRC is what we used to call Zaire, right?
And then there's another Congo across the river, which is separate. So the government of DRC has long had very poor control over its territory. And the East has been kind of a lawless area for a long, long time with a lot of violence. And that happens to be very, very mineral rich. So it's and there's already been a massive regional conflict there with lots of states coming in with their armies, trying to maybe pacify, but really pick sides. And the region's been involved in trying to end this conflict as well. So the Congolese government is very upset, but it's not really clear what they can really do about it and what the continent's going to do about it. And it's basically a huge win as part of the long reign of genius and terror of Paul Kagame, the president of Rwanda, who is, who's an evil genius.
Yeah, the West's favorite evil genius African dictator.
So I feel like we don't have time today, but if you want to have an interesting conversation, it's an interesting case in point of where he has definitely Rwanda, relatively speaking, and from coming from where they were, has been a success story in many respects, but on the back of just brutal dictatorship, meddling in other countries, theft. And so it's one of these interesting case in points of where, do you accept and the alternative, like if he's overthrown, or certainly if he, I mean, he'll die at some point, although I think he's still got many years left. That could be worse. So to me, it's an interesting case study in like, when are you sort of complicit in evil, and when is that not a good idea?
And also, what do you tolerate in a post-genocidal environment?
Right, exactly.
It's relatively rare. In fact, I can't think of another example of a situation in which the ethnic group that is the victim of a genocide then takes power in the very country in which it took place. So it's not like, Israel rises somewhere else.
Closest thing, and of course, the two, Rwanda and Israel, are very close, by the way, and they both. I don't want to say use, like the genocide obviously was real and terrible, but Kagame has been turning the knife of Western guilt on the
Right.
genocide and getting away with murder literally for years and years and years. And some could argue, again, I'm not going to get into it, but obviously some say Israel does the same.
Well, so first of all, Israel does do the same. The difference is that Israel doesn't rule Germany. Right. Israel is sovereign in a completely different location from the one that, and I can't think of another example,
There's not that many genocides, but
Armenians don't rule Turkey.
Mhm.
And so you have this, genuinely unusual circumstance in which, in a very short space of time, Tutsis went from being the subject of the most unspeakable um, murderous rampage, one of the fastest killing sprees certainly in modern history, to being the ruling power. And I think that's an anomaly that we've never really gotten our hands around in terms of what do we tolerate from
Here's the dirty
Paul
little
Kagame.
secret, though. Kagame and the RPF, there was another genocide after the genocide that was a lot, it wasn't as big, and it was hidden and quiet. There are mass graves of Hutus, not just Hutu soldiers, like Hutu. There was another genocide after the genocide. It wasn't
Oh,
as big and it wasn't as orchestrated or whatever, but and that has been completely covered up.
that's interesting. So, yeah, I mean, I would say modern Rwanda poses a unique post-conflict challenge that I can't think of an analog to anywhere.
Okay, not a genocide, but I do think the ANC takeover of South Africa is somewhat analogous, because the apartheid regime it wasn't genocidal, but it was brutal and oppressive, and then the same people that were oppressed became the government.
Yeah, I would say it's a pale shadow of the question. The same people who are repressed become the government. They are not murderous the way Kagame
Oh,
is.
no, 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 no. I'm just saying the model of where an oppressed group becomes the government in the same location.
Yeah, so like that, I can think of 100 examples of.
Yeah.
I can't think
The
of
difference is Mandela was not Kagame.
exactly, and also that
Quite the opposite.
that the ANC at its worst is a corrupt uh, post-colonial regime that actually is dememocratically elected on a repeated basis, and and
Success story.
like
I
I
would
think
count it as a success story.
I think I can think of a lot of examples of that. I can't think of an example of the closest I can think of to uh, um, the the Tutsis is Cambodia, but
Mm.
Cambodia is not the it's more Marxist in its orientation and less ethnic. So it's the murderers, it's more like the Great Leap Forward. It's sort of auto genocide rather than. But Hun Sen is a former Khmer Rouge guy. There's some similarities there, but I really think Rwanda is unique. All right, we
Wait,
are at an hour.
the whole thing on Rwanda because it's just a fascinating case, and I don't know
So
what you.
let's actually do a whole Rwanda show because we should. Uh, but that is it for today. It is Kash Patel Day, and I got to go Kash Patel. And I'm going to be Kash Pateling all day. So
Bless
when you are having fun today, people, when you are enjoying yourselves, when you are not watching the Kash Patel hearings, I want you to spare a moment and think of me.
I think you need to wear leather. You need to get on some leather.
It's too hot in here, and I'm going to be doing grouting while I listen to this because there is no way I'm going through a day of COVID and Kash Patel without doing some work around the cabin in the woods. We're going to be back tomorrow. Got no idea. I think it's going to be me and Ev. I'm not sure. No idea who the guest is going to be, if there's going to be a guest. But I'm sure we'll brief on the hearings. We also got the Robert Kennedy hearings to talk about and the Tulsi Gabbard hearings to talk about. Maybe I'll do a makeup video. We will see you tomorrow in any event.